Well, hey everybody, welcome to Lifehouse. My name is Ben, and wherever you are watching from, so glad that you have chosen to make Lifehouse a part of your day and a part of your week. We are just under 2 minutes away from a fantastic service together. We actually have a really special message today that I'm looking forward to that talks a lot about why we do what we do as a church and how it impacts people's lives. So you're not going to want to miss that. Don't go too far so that you don't miss that. And also, we're going to start off our time together today with a song that's really special to me. It has a lot of meaning to me. It's important, but I think it'll be have a lot of meaning for you as well. So don't go too far so you don't miss that. It'll probably pull on your heartstrings just a tiny little bit. So we're going to be live here in about a minute. Now's a great time to comment. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd also love it if you shared a link to the video if you're watching on our live platform so people can watch along with you, or share the Facebook live stream as well. It's a great thing to have people joining you as part of our service. So don't go too far. We'll see you in about 1 minute. I could still find Wiley's house, riding on my bike with eyes closed. I could name every girl that he took out, yeah. And from my memory dial his house phone. Can you take me back when we were just kids? We weren't scared of getting older, yeah. 'Cause no one knows you like they know you, and no one probably ever will. You can grow up, make new ones, but the truth is there's nothing like old friends. 'Cause you can't make old friends. I can still feel the windows down, listening to Jimmy Eat World, riding 3 wide on Blake's bench seat, yeah. My God, it's been 10 years now. I would have his back tomorrow, and he'd still fight anyone who tried to touch me. Can you take me back when we were just kids? We weren't scared of getting older, yeah. 'Cause no one knows you like they know you, and no one probably ever will. You can grow up, make new ones, but the truth is there's nothing like old friends. Got some good friends now, right here in Van Wert. But I've never seen your parents' back porch. Wouldn't change how things turned out, yeah. But there's no one in this time zone who knows what inline skates that I wore. So if we haven't had a chance to meet before, my name is Ben.
And for the last 3+ years, I've had the amazing privilege of getting to work at this awesome place called Lifehouse. But sadly, that journey is coming to a close. Today is my last Sunday with you all. We'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute. But I thought it would be good for us to end with a good time together. So I'm going to sing something, and I encourage you to have some audience participation here. You're going to sing it back to me whenever I point at you. Are you ready? Here we go. Let's hear you now. Whoa, whoa. Here we go. Whoa, whoa. Come on, 10% more. Whoa, whoa. Let's hear you. Whoa, whoa. All right, twice as fast. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Very nice. Goodness gracious, that guy is good. Me back when we were just kids. We weren't scared of getting older, 'cause we're getting older, and no one knows you like they know you. No one probably ever will. You can grow up, make new ones, but the truth is, can you take me back when? Oh, when we were just kids. We weren't scared of getting older, yeah. No one knows you like they know you. No one probably ever will. You can grow up, make new ones, but the truth is that we grow up and wish we could go back. Then there's nothing like
Oh man, that was fun. Hey, we are so glad all of you are here online, in the house. My name is Matt Brown. I am the lead pastor. And hey, if you're new around here, we're just really thrilled you decided to connect with us and be with us. Now, I need to say this. I want to talk about what I would call some family talk, which is really good family talk, because we believe we're a family. But if you're visiting or you're new here, it can be a little weird to be on the inside of family talk. I just want to let you know that what Ben mentioned about them moving on, this being their last day, that is true, and we're a little bit melancholy because some good friends of ours are moving on to something really significant. And it's interesting, when someone leaves a church staff, they can be for all kinds of reasons, but Ben and Amy's story, and Ben is our service programming director here at Lifehouse, if you didn't know, and he was the guy just singing. They're moving on to St. Joe, Missouri, because God has placed it on their heart that they should go back to their hometown and start a church like Lifehouse, because they want to see people connect with Jesus, but especially people that don't know Jesus and God's amazing love. So God just put this thing in them that they would go and do that. And I'm so grateful for the work that Ben and Amy have done on our staff. Ben is one of the hardest working people in the world. And when you're my age, when you find somebody that's willing to work hard, you just appreciate it. Ben has brought our place into a whole new atmosphere when it comes to online church and all the things we get to do. So that's a little bit sad. And Ben's just a friend of mine. I consider him kind of a brother in Christ and a brother in what we do. But we're so excited for them. So I wanted to bring Ben and Amy up wherever you guys are. Will you guys come up and join me? Give it up for Ben and Amy, would you guys? Yeah, it's good. Last time on stage together. Well, last time in this season on stage together. Who knows what might happen in the future? But I just want to thank both of you. And Ben is a full-time staff member, but Amy is someone that has, Amy gives her life to what we do around here. What happens in this room, Amy has been in all over the place. And I love this. I told this story in first service that about a year before COVID hit, I think it was about a year before COVID hit, Ben comes to me and he goes, Matt, we got to get online church going. We got to get live. We got to get cameras moving all over the place. And I'm like, Ben, we're never going to need all that. He literally, that's what I said to him. And he got it all in place and it was amazing. And COVID hit and we were ready to go and we hardly missed a beat along the way. And so I just want to thank you for all that and the way you've grown and the good way you guys have cared and your wonderful kids too. We're just grateful for them. So I wanted to take a minute and I wanted us to pray for them. And maybe you're new to church and this feels a little weird. It's okay. You're fine. We're going to actually do what's called laying hands on them. And that's something you do when you send people out to go do something amazing for God. I'm going to invite the band to come up and join me. And I'd love for you just to join me in prayer wherever you are. And we're just going to pray for their journey, their family, but specifically their new church that they are about to start. So Heavenly Father, I'm grateful for Ben and Amy as my friends, as people I've gotten to work with, people I've gotten to lead, and the way you've helped them grow and mature in their faith, in their marriage, and in their ministry. Lord, as they go off and they do this amazing thing, this thing that we got to do 14 years ago, I pray that you would just bless them and give them your strength and your spirit to do something amazing for your kingdom with you, Jesus, and under you. I pray that you protect their family in this time, that you'd watch over their children and knit them together. I pray that Ben would make great leadership decisions and Amy would just be right alongside him. And Lord, they would create a church that unchurched people love to attend and that everyone would grow in their relationship with you, Jesus. We just pray over them that they know they're loved by us and they're loved by you, Jesus, and you can use them to do great things. We love them, Lord, and so do you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Give me a hug. I love you both. Yeah, get out of here. Yeah. It's a weird thing when you reach a stage in life I have when, your staff move on and man, it feels a little bit like your kids are going on. And so we're just wishing them well. Here's what's going to happen today. 2 things I need you to know. Ben and Amy are going to be hanging out in the lobby after the service. I would love for you just to, say goodbye, hug them, tell them, wish them well and all that good stuff. The other thing you need to know, and I literally made this decision. You can go back and watch first service if you want an exciting moment. I made this decision during our offering time. We're going to give the entire offering from today for online giving and in the house giving to Ben and Amy and their new church. It's all going with them to get them going and get wind in their sails because we believe that we not only should care about the church here, we should care about the church all over the world. So just know we're giving what you guys give to them today to go carry the mission on with Lifehouse. All right? Is that cool? Yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right. We got to have church now. Let's get on to church, okay? Because I could just linger in this moment all morning because it's emotional and good for me. Hey, if you're new, we are so glad you're here. We're going to sing a couple great songs. Ben's going to lead us in one of them. Ryan's going to lead us in the first one. And then you get to hear from our video teaching pastor, Andy Stanley. He is going to talk about the church. And he's going to talk about his church, North Point Community Church, and what's happening there. And I wanted you to hear it because it represents so well what's happening here. And I wanted hopefully for you to be inspired of what God is doing in St. Joe, Missouri, in Van Wert, Ohio, in Atlanta, Georgia, and all over the world. And so as you listen, I hope a fire in your soul just burns a little bit for what God wants to do with all of us. Now, let's stand and let's sing to that great big God as Ryan leads us.
Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see, my heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our Jesus can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, yeah. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but You have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won. For You have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is Your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in Your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Never failed me yet. The fact that our God has never failed and he never will gives us confidence today. We can sing these words with confidence. Come on. I've seen you move. You move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move. You move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way. I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move. You move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it
Man, it's so good to sing those things. Just be reminded of the fact that our God is moving. He has moved. He's doing things in our lives. So reflect back on those things. But to also look forward and go, we believe that God's going to continue to do great things in our lives and in our church. And that's just a good thing to be singing together. So thanks for singing with us. You guys can go and be seated. As you are seated, I just want to give you a heads up that you're not quite done participating yet. Because we're going to participate together in a little bit of a social experiment with one another, mostly because I'm curious, but also because I just want to kind of see how this goes. I think it'll be a good exercise for all of us today. So here's what I want to invite you to do. First of all, I want to invite you to pull your phone out. Yes, I'm encouraging you to pull your phone out in the middle of church. I know, what in the world's going on here? Pull your phone out and go ahead and turn on the flashlight on your phone, but then set it in your lap so you're kind of covering that up for right now, because we're going to get to that in just a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a series of questions over the next few minutes. And if the question pertains to you, I want to invite you to raise your phone, raise your flashlight and say, yep, that's me. And if you're watching online, we want to invite you to participate in this as well. We would love to hear your comments as well. So here's what I would encourage you to do if you're online. I'm going to ask these questions, and you can comment with that hand-raising emoji. There's also a little flashlight emoji. If you want to participate with the lights here in the room, you could do that. Or you can just say yes or yeah, just to say, hey, yeah, that's me as well. So we're going to start off really easy together. You guys all ready? Here's the first one. The first question I'm going to ask. Raise your phone and raise your light and comment online if you have ever attended a Lifehouse service, whether in person or online. All right, there we go. There we go. We've broken the ice. That should be all of us. All the phones should be in the air for that one. Very good. Very well done. Okay, you can put those down. How many of you would ever say that you have enjoyed a Lifehouse service, even if it ain't this one? How many of you would say even, okay, whew, good. I'm really glad to see that many lights. Okay, how about this? How many of you would say that you first came to Lifehouse, that when you first came, You came specifically because somebody invited you. Whether that was a coworker, a family member, a friend, just an acquaintance, somebody invited you. Okay, keep those lights up for just a second, because I want to take just a moment, because this is really important that we reflect on this for just a moment. This is the importance of an invite, first of all. I just want to point that out. And so that's really cool. Okay, you can put your lights down. How about this? How many of you in this room or online would say that you believe Ryan is the best looking worship leader in town?
I'm going to punch you.
Wow.
I'm going to punch you in the face.
Was that your wife?
I hope so.
That was, yeah. Wow. That was way too many lights. That hurt. Just kidding. All right, moving on. Here we go. How many of you would say that at some point in the last 14 years that you have connected with other people through a Lifehouse community group? That could be a men's group, women's group, a home group, starting point, like some sort of short-term group. That's a lot of lights. That's awesome. Okay, you can put those down. How many of you would say in this room that at some point in the last 14 years, you have served in some capacity at Lifehouse, whether that's kids, students, production, guest services, you led a group, any of those things? This is what I love about you guys. I love this, that so many people make this place their home by serving other people. That's awesome. You can put those down. How about this? How many of you would say that you have ever furthered the mission of Lifehouse through your financial giving, even if you've only given $1 at some point in the last 14 years? That's awesome. Thank you guys for furthering that mission here. That's awesome. This is a big one for me. I love this one. How many of you would say that you have kids that at some point have or are currently experiencing some amazing kids or student environments at Lifehouse? That's me. I'm so grateful for that, for my kids. That's awesome. Okay. How about this? This is a big one too. I love this one. How many of you in the last 14 years have been baptized at Lifehouse Church? That is so cool. And they're all over here on the baptism side. That's funny. That is so cool. That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, how about this one? How many of you would say you began your relationship with Christ? You began your relationship with Jesus after you started coming to Lifehouse Church? Man, that's awesome. That is so cool. Okay, this is the last one. You guys ready? How many of you would say that Lifehouse has in some way, in any way, positively impacted your faith and impacted your life and helped you grow in your relationship with Jesus in the last 14 years? That's incredible. Can we keep those up for just a moment, just to celebrate this together with one another? That is so cool to see. All right, you can go ahead and put your phones down. You can turn your flashlights off. It's just amazing to me to think about the impact that Lifehouse is having on this community, the legacy that's being left in this area. It's moving. I hope it's moving for you, Matt, wherever you are. I know you're somewhere in here. And like, just to see the impact that you guys are having on this area, it's incredible. And one of the things that's really neat for me personally, since being here, is that this church, this place, Matt as our leader, but also all of you, when you invite and you serve and you connect and you give, when you do those things, one of the things that I love about it is that we are all in on our mission. We are all in our mission of leading people in a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And not only that, but we are all in our vision of creating churches that unchurched people love to attend. And it's exciting for me because seeing that, I've seen the impact. We can just see the impact just now as we went through that. Seeing that impact here and seeing the need for something like that in Missouri is why my family is going to do what we're going to do, because we saw a need there and we're like, we believe this model works, that it reaches people. Obviously, you can see that it changes people's lives, and we want to go do that. And so we're excited to go do that. So I want to encourage you here at Lifehouse to continue to give, to continue to invite people into this thing, to continue to serve one another, to continue to connect with one another in community, because it's making a difference. It really is making a difference, and it's changing people's lives. And I also want to invite you as well to, like Matt said, just to partner with us in prayer. We could really use your prayers, and as you think about Amy and I over the next few years, we would love it if you just prayed for our church and for our mission and for the people of St. Joe, because our hope is that by launching this model, that someday, years from now, people in St. Joe, Missouri, just like yourselves, will be able to raise their phones, so to speak, and say, Jesus has completely changed my life because of Current Church. And that's our goal. So we'd love for your prayers in that. And I just want to say, Matt said, you just kind of have to go back and watch the moment in first service. It was at this point in first service that he interrupted me. I had no idea what was going on. with the whole offering thing today. That completely caught me off guard. And then he tried to hand the mic back to me, and that wasn't going to happen in that moment. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your giving today. Thank you for your generosity. It will make a difference in St. Joe, Missouri. It will. I just don't have words beyond that. And he told me I didn't need to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. If you're new here today, I still don't want you to give a thing, because we want you to know that we just want the service to be a gift to you. But also, I hope that if you're new here today, you can see that this is a pretty special place, and it's full of some pretty special people that do some pretty special things. So, yeah, you're in the right place if you're new today. All right, that's enough of that emotional junk. Yeah, we're gonna move on and get into the message. Like Matt said, it's a really good message. It actually talks a lot about what we just talked about. So I'm excited about it. Hope you're excited about it too. This is our video teaching pastor, Andy Stanley, and Saved by the Church.
Let me tell you a story of a group of people who went before us. They dreamed of creating a different kind of church. They started in a ballroom and eventually landed in a field. Little did they know what was about to happen next. Their dream, it grew. It grew beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Their dream inspired another group of people to dream, to start a church like this in their community. And the inspiration spread through city streets, suburban neighborhoods, and country roads. They led, they served, they gave. And our communities are better for it. This is our chapter in a story spanning generations. The story of our community. The story of the church.
The reason I'm so committed to the local church, and the reason I want to continue building new local churches, and the reason I want to continue to spread the influence of the local church all over the country and all over the world is because the church, this is personal for me, the church saved my life. The church saved my life. It didn't save my life because, I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, and I was in some kind of trouble, and the church rescued me, or someone from the church came and, got me out of a difficult situation. When I say the church saved my life, and many of you would say this is your story as well, you just haven't thought about it in these terms. I say the church saved my life because of what it prevented in my life. Now, I'm tempted to say I can't imagine where I would be without the influence of the local church, but that's not true. I can imagine exactly where I would be if it weren't for the influence of the local church, because I know the me. See, you know the stage me with a microphone on me, but I know the me. And before I was a pastor, I was a man. And before I was a pastor, I was a middle school boy. And before I was a pastor, I was a high school boy. And before I was a pastor, I was a college student. And before I was a pastor, I was a single young man. And if I would imagine what would happen if instantly all of the influence of the local church, all of those Sunday school classes, all of those camps, all of those verses they made me memorize, all of that flannel graph, all of that artwork I took home and my parents said that's beautiful and threw away. If I took all of that stuff, all of that influence of the local church, because I grew up and going to a local church. If I took all of the influence of the local church and you suddenly pulled that out of my life and out of my history and out of my memory banks, I know what a mess I would be, because I know the me. I can imagine where I would be. So when I think about the local church saved my life because the local church prevented me from a whole lot of things that I know I would have gotten into because I'm as normal can be. Now this weekend, you were a part of something extraordinary that many of you don't even know took place. Anybody who's been a part of any of our Atlanta area churches for any amount of time, if you've given a single dollar to any of our churches, you were part of this. This weekend, we had an event called Walking Wisely Weekend. Some of you hosted kids in your home. You're probably actually not here because you're exhausted. But now I want you to think about this. Just 6 of our churches participated this weekend. Peachtree City and those 2 campuses do Walking Wisely Weekend, a different weekend. But this weekend, 6 of our Atlanta area churches hosted events with over 4,500 middle schoolers, 4,500 middle schoolers. So all weekend long, I'm getting all this social media, over 4,500, over 1,000 leaders, over 1,400 and something pizzas, okay? 300 plus host homes. This is an event, get this, this is an event that middle schoolers have to sign up for, pay for, and get brought to. And we had over 4,500 middle schoolers at this event. Now, here's why I'm bringing it up. Because as I looked at the social media, as I looked at the pictures all weekend long, I could not help but see middle school Andy and middle school Louis Giglio, because we grew up together, middle school and high school. And here's what I thought, honestly. I thought, God, thank you. I only pray that their involvement in our local churches will do for them what my involvement in a local church did for me, because it saved me from so many things. It saved me from having a more complicated story. It saved me from stories that I wouldn't want anyone else to find out. It saved me from who knows what I would have done relationally. And when I look at those thousands of kids, and when I think of the influence that we have in local church, not just for adults, but for the next generation, and I think about how I benefited from growing up in a local church, like many of you did as well, I just can't say thank you enough to you. And I can't be grateful enough for the local church. And I'm more committed than ever for us to continue to build strong, extraordinary local churches all over our city and all over our country, because the local church saves people, not just heaven one day when we die. That's just part of it. That's the part we can only dream of and imagine of. It's much richer than that. It's deeper than that. It's far more practical than that. So as I was thinking about opening up Woodstock City Church, and I was thinking about all the things that we're doing around the city and around the country, I began thinking about the specific ways that the local church changed my life. And here's what the church did for me. You know what the church did for me? Many of you would say this is your story as well. Again, I'm just putting words to your story. The local church informed my conscience. I learned in the local church that I was never to mistreat anyone. That's where I learned that. And it was reinforced over and over and over. It was in the local church that I was taught that I was to view young ladies as my sister and not objects of lust. I learned in the local church that I was accountable, this is amazing, I was accountable to my Heavenly Father for how I treated everyone. I learned in the local church that you don't really get by with sin, that every single sin has a pleasure and a payment. And the pleasure is this long and the payment can last a lifetime. That's what I learned in the local church. I learned in the local church that I was to forgive. I learned in the local church that I was to confess. I learned through the local church that I was to make restitution for my sins. It was in the local church that I was taught and that I saw illustrated and heard stories of adults who, had just war stories about how they held on to bitterness and anger. It was in the local church that I learned that to hang on to resentment and to hang on to bitterness and to hang on to hurt, you've heard this before, is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. My whole life, every time I got hurt and every time I got angry, I remembered, I have to let this go. I cannot imagine where I would be today if I hadn't been taught that. I can't imagine where I would be if I hadn't learned to confess my sins, not just to invisible God, but to other people. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't learned that you make restitution. When you take something from someone else, you don't just say to God, I'm sorry, and do better next time. You make restitution. I could go on and on and on and on. That the local church shaped my conscience. I am so grateful for this, because if this had not been a part of my growing up, again, I can't imagine. I know exactly where I would be. Now here's how some of you process this. Every once in a while you sit through a message or a sermon and you think, I wish I'd heard that when I was 18. I heard it when I was 18. You think, I wish I'd heard that when I was 16. I heard it when I was 16. I wish I'd heard that before I got married. I heard it before I got married. I'm telling you, the local church prevented so much junk in my life. I'm so extraordinarily grateful. That's why there is no pastor in America that is more committed to the next generation, more committed than to creating extraordinary environments for our kids, because I know it's not simply what they are learning. I know it's what we through the local church are preventing. And that's why having one is not enough and having two is not enough. And for the rest of our lives together, we're gonna strengthen and we're gonna pour in to the local church. It changed my life. Some of you say, you know what, I never thought about it that way. That's exactly why I'm where I am today. It's exactly why I see the world the way I see it today. The other thing the local church did for me is it instilled in me a sense of purpose. Because I was taught as a young age, just like we teach your kids at a young age, and just like we want to teach this next generation at a young age, that God has a plan for your life. That God has a purpose for your life. That there is something beyond this life. You were created on purpose, for a purpose. It was in the local church that I was taught every single day to pray this: God, show me your plan for my life. Show me your plan for my life. Where do you want me to go to college? I mean, I know what my parents say. I know what my GPA says. I know what my teachers say. I know what the test says, but God, it's bigger than that. Where do you want me to go to school? Who do you want me to date? What do you want me to do with my time? What do you want me to do with my life? Early on, I was taught, that instilled in me through the local church, there's a purpose, there's a sense of destiny. I'm telling you, I am so grateful for that. And consequently, because this church does that for this generation, I have had a partner as a parent to instill in the lives of my children, my 3 kids. God has a plan for your life. God has a purpose for your life. Every day matters. Every decision you make matters. Every decision you make connects to the other decisions of your life. Your past will one day be your present, and your present and your past impact your future. All of these ideas, all of these principles, all of these connect the dot things were instilled in me at a young age. I am so extraordinarily grateful. And again, you hear stuff like that and you think, wow, I wish I had grown up in a church like that. Well, you're helping us create churches like that. Wow, I wish I'd learned that in church. Well, you're in a church that's gonna help us create churches where the next generation grows up hearing those very things. I'm so extremely grateful. And the other thing, and this isn't true of everybody, but it's true of me. My local church, growing up in church, provided for me the context for lifelong friendships. I met who was forever and ever and still my very closest friend, Louis Giglio, in the 6th grade under a bunk bed at camp. That's where we met. My dad was a pastor, and I was too young to go to the high school camp because I was a rising 7th grader, and Louis was a rising 7th grader, but his older sister went. For some reason, they signed him up for camp, and we got there, and there was no place for us to be because there was just, cabins for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and here we were, these rising 7th graders, so they put us in with the seniors. We were this tall, and they were this tall. So it's all the senior in high schools and me and Louis Giglio. And literally there was this big shaving cream, egg battle between the juniors and seniors, and we had no place to hide, so we got under the bunk beds, and that's where we met. And we've been friends ever since. If it hadn't been for the local church, we probably would. In fact, if it hadn't been for the local church, we would have never met. I went to school in one county. He was in school in another county. And that's just the beginning. Rick Holliday, he oversees all the business side and all the sort of the non-ministry side of our entire organization. We met early on in college. Became friends, we're roommates, and have been friends ever since. The church, for me, has provided some of my lifelong friendships. And you know what's fabulous? The church has done the same thing for my kids. My kids' best friends right now, most of my kids' best friends were friends they met at church and at school, but mostly at church. And the kids that they went to church and school with, they are their dear friends all the way through high school and college. And for many of your kids, this is true as well. For me, some of my closest adult friends are adults that I've met not in rows, but in circles. Because we say circles are better than rows, because in circles you have actual community. And it's been in community and community groups that Sandra and I have made some lifelong friends. That would not have happened for me. That would not have happened for us as a couple, apart from the local church. The other thing the church did for me that it did for some of you is it was the church that gave me a window into God's activity in the world. You see, we all grow up in our little bubble. Whatever community you're in, you know where your daddy works, your mama works, you know where you go to school, you know where you go to high school, you know a few neighbors, and that's kind of all you know. Maybe you go to camp, but your world isn't any bigger than your little world. The local church as a kid and as a teenager, as a college student, exposed me to the fact that God is as big as the world, that God is active all over the world, that it's not just about me and the whole world doesn't look like my world, that the world is very, very big in different places, and all over the world there are people worshiping Jesus, that the local church is a big, big international deal. And here's what we discovered. If you know this, if you've traveled, if you've been on one of our trips or any kind of Global X trip or any mission trip, you discover that people with less stuff have more faith and more joy. And as a teenager, this rocked my world. How can they be so happy? How can they have so much confidence in God when they have so little, they have so few things? Again, it just blew me up as a person and reminded me that the God I serve isn't the God that may or may not answer my little prayers. The God of this world and Jesus who died for the sin of the world, it is for every single person. The church did that for me. Where else do you get that? Where else do you see that? Where else do you experience that? The other thing the church did for me, the church taught me to be generous. Because I grew up in a church where when you got $1, you gave a dime. And if you got a dime, you gave a penny. My entire life, and I'm telling you, this may be not the most, but I'm telling you, up there with the top 3 things, I am so grateful for this. Because I've learned through the years as a pastor, it is very, very difficult to teach an adult very much. And it is really difficult to teach an adult to be generous. If you're not generous by adulthood, it's not, when I say generous, you know what I mean. I don't mean, there's a food drive and here's a can and they want to raise money. Oh, let me see, here's $5. I don't mean that. That's not generosity. Generosity is when you decide beforehand to take a percentage of your income and you pre-decide it's going somewhere. That's generosity. It's pre-decision. We've talked about that. I am so great. It's so hard to teach an adult that because we just hang on thinking we're going to, and then you run out of time before you run out of money and then you mess up your kids. It's a great system we have here in the United States. So I learned early on because of the church, to be generous. I have never not given at least 10% of my money away every year. Not because I'm super spiritual, I'm a great guy. It's because that's what I was taught. You gave $1 out of 10 and 10 out of 100 and 100 out of 1,000 and 1,000 out of 10,000. And now I get to give, 10,000s out of 100,000s. It's unbelievable. It's very easy for me and Sandra to be generous because we were taught this from day one. And here's the thing, and I mean this, I wouldn't say this if it were true. Plus I'm in church, okay? So look, if somebody came to me and said, Andy, we've worked it out for you to get all that money back you've given all your life. But in giving it back, we extract the good it did around the world. Are you kidding? I wouldn't, that's a no. You never miss money that you give away appropriately. You never miss money that you give away responsibly. It is easy for me to give, and the reason it's easy for me to give is because the church taught me to be generous. And I watch my kids with their first jobs and their paychecks, and my son who's out and got a real job with his own deal and his own insurance. My kids are generous. I am so grateful. Hopefully they learned a little bit of that from me, but they learned it from us, from our church. They saw it modeled, and they see what happens when everybody understands generosity. And you know what else I learned as a kid? That I've told you this before. Some of you believe me, some of you don't. Again, it's hard to teach, an adult any new tricks. I get that, especially when it comes to money, because we're scared. And the reason we're scared is because somehow we think somebody's gonna take it away and then we waste it ourselves. Nobody has to take it away. You take it away from yourself. Okay, different sermon for a different day. But here's what I learned. Here's what I learned as a kid. That generosity, this is so fabulous. Generosity is an invitation for God to get involved in my finances. Generosity is an invitation for God to get involved in my finances. And every single person watching and listening, at some point in your life, you want God interested in your finances, to get involved in your finances. If you've ever prayed for a job, you wanted God involved in your finances. If you've ever prayed, God, how am I gonna pay the bills? You've wanted God involved in your finances. If you said, God, how am I ever gonna get my kids through college financially? You have wanted God involved in your finances. Here's what I discovered. Generosity is an invitation. I'm so extraordinarily grateful. That's what the church taught me. It's always an invitation. So here's what I've concluded as an adult. And here's what you hear us say, and here's why we do this, and here's why we're not gonna stop, is because we believe that following Jesus will make your life better and it'll make you better at life. And by the way, you get to go to heaven when you die. But even before that, following Jesus. I mean, this is the story of my life, and many of you would agree. And some of you are on the edge of deciding that following Jesus will make your life better, and it'll make you better at life. Now, that's the personal side. But there's another whole big side of this that goes way beyond my story or even your personal story. It has to do with the next generation. And it has to do with our nation. Because here's what I believe, and here's what we have discovered, and here's what we see going on all around the world. Strong church, strong nation. Strong church, strong nation. Strong church, strong nation. The church, you hear me talk about this from time to time. I don't know that I explain it very well. The church provides the strongest argument for the dignity of individuals and for human rights. The church and the message of the church and the message of Jesus provides the strongest argument, the strongest apologetic in culture and in the world for the dignity of individuals, that every single individual matters, and human rights. That we are creations of God before we are Americans. That we are creations of God before we're Canadians. That we are creations of God before we're Brazilian. We are creations of God before we are any nationality. And that every single person is made in the image of God. And that every single person has intrinsic, not ascribed value. This is a big, big deal. And in societies where that's not true, you do not want to live there. And what we forget is this is an inherently Christian value. We think it's an American value. No, it is a Christian value that has influenced our nation and influenced the conscience of this nation. And it comes directly from the local church. A few months ago, actually about a year ago, our small group, our community group, went through Philip Yancey's book called Vanishing Grace. It was his newest book. I think it's still his newest book. A fabulous, fabulous book, Vanishing Grace by Philip Yancey. And in that book, he says the following. I want to read you a quote because he says it way better than I could ever say it. Here's what he says. Moreover, those who condemn the church, those people who are anti-church, those who condemn the church for its blind spots, because the church has gotten it wrong from time to time. The church, whatever the church is, has done some dumb stuff. Those who condemn the church for its blind spots do so by gospel principles, arguing for the very moral values that the gospel originally set loose in the world. Here's what he's about to say. This is so powerful. He's saying that in our culture where people say you shouldn't and you should and that's right and that's wrong, he's about to argue that all that ought and ought not actually came from our gospel, and people have forgotten the connection between these two dots. Here's how he says it. Human rights, civil rights, women's rights, minority rights, gay rights, disability rights, animal rights. Next screen. The success of these modern movements, all of those rights movements reflect a widespread empathy for the oppressed. Here's what he's saying. That anytime there's a movement that says, oh, we need to defend, we need to protect, we need to defend, we need to protect, the underlying basis for those movements is people matter. Individuals matter. The dignity of the individual matters. But here's the kicker, and here's what most people don't know, and many people have forgotten. That has no precedent in the ancient world. In other words, the whole idea that we should care about the oppressed, that we should care about the poor, that we should care about the people who are disabled, that we should care about the people in society who can't keep up. That whole notion had no precedent in ancient history and in the past and in many nations. That idea had no value in the former Soviet Union. That value had no leverage in Nazi Germany. That value has currently no leverage in many countries in the Middle East now. The idea that every single individual has value, that every single individual has been created in the image of God, is a uniquely Christian idea that was introduced to the world through Christianity. He continues. Classical philosophers, ancient philosophers, considered mercy and pity to be character defects. Read the ancient Greeks, read the ancient Romans, look at the former Soviet Union. People who had problems, people who couldn't keep up, they were considered inferior. They were given labels and titles, and they were cast away by society to be character defects, contrary to justice. Not until Jesus did that attitude change. And my friends, this is huge. This is so big. This is so important. We assume that everybody values everybody. Not true. You, look up here, you were taught that. It is reinforced every single day in our culture and in our society. It is a uniquely Christian idea. You extract the influence of the church from any society and any nation, and you just wait. You've lit a fuse. Again, ancient history, modern history, current history underscores the importance of that. The local church is the only organization that keeps front and center that every single person matters. And in this way, the church shaped and continues to shape our national conscience. The church is the only group that inspires us to embrace the one mandate that could change everything. Now, we're in a political season. Everybody wants to bring about change. Every time there's a political season, somebody promises change, right? Did you know the New Testament gives us the one idea that can actually bring about change? There's just one idea. There's just one idea that could instantly, within 6 months, our nation would feel different. Within 6 months, we would feel the difference. There's just one idea. And the government can't make it happen. The only thing the government can do, and I love our government, I love our country. This isn't a knock. This is the nature of government. This is what governments are supposed to do. The government can prescribe how low we can go before we go to jail. That's what the government does. The government just says, this is how low you go before you start losing rights. This is how low you can go before you end up in jail. This is how low you can go and how many times you can go that low before you end up in prison. That's what the government does. The government does not inspire any of us to greatness. It is not even the role of the government. The media doesn't inspire us to greatness, and that's okay, it's not supposed to. I'm a journalism major, I understand this. One of the first things we learned in journalism was this: nobody cares about good news. If you report every night how many planes safely landed at Hartsfield, nobody cares. We want to know about the one that almost crashed. We want to know about the one that almost had a midair collision. We want to know about the tragedy. Nobody wants to watch a debate where everybody just gets along. No, you go. No, you go. Would you like to have some of my time? No, you can have some. We don't like that. We want it to be as close to a fist fight as possible for the ratings to go up. That's nobody's fault. That's just the way it is. That the media doesn't inspire us to greatness. Schools used to inspire kids to greatness, but now, because of what's happened in our country, partly the fault of the church, I have to be honest. Nowadays, schools have become sort of value-free zones. We can't have any specific values because we might hurt somebody's feelings or make people uncomfortable. Wow. So here's the question: who inspires us to greatness? Who's going to inspire us beyond the letter of the law? Who inspires us? Where do we go to be inspired? Come on, to do the one thing that could change everything, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the game changer. My friends, think of it. If every single American did this for 6 months, everything changes. Everybody pays their taxes. The police just kind of make sure the traffic's moving. When there's a fire, everybody shows up to help. The firemen are like, wow, look at all these volunteers. It's incredible. Y'all get out of the way, but thanks for helping. Just imagine for a minute. If every United States citizen for 6 months decided, you know what, I'm gonna put this on hold, put this habit on hold. I know my wife's crazy, but I'm gonna put my behavior, and my husband's crazy, but we're just all going to do for other people what we would want other people to do for us. I'm telling you, it changes everything. Where did that come from? The Greeks, the Romans, Soviets, United States Constitution? No. Jesus. This is why healthy church, healthy nation. It's why the church is the most important institution in the United States of America, in spite of what anybody says. And anytime someone is critical of the church, they are generally, as Philip Yancey says, they are generally leveraging gospel principles to be critical. In other words, if the influence of the church were suddenly withdrawn from our nation and suddenly withdrawn from our nation's history, this nation would be a very, very different place. and would feel so very, very different. We would be poorer for it. It's what history says, ancient history, not so ancient history, what's currently going on in some parts of the world today. So I love the local church. I absolutely love the local church. It shaped and it saved my life. And it shaped and it saved perhaps your life as well. So I say, we just keep going. And we just keep making more of them. And we try to make the ones that exist stronger and healthier. And we might as well, because first of all, every sermon needs at least one verse of scripture, okay? We might as well, because 2,000 years ago, Jesus and his guys are headed to Caesarea Philippi. We talk about this passage all the time, and we should. And they're saying, and Jesus is saying to the guys, hey, what's the word on the street about me? What are people saying about me? And they're saying, well, some people think you're a reincarnated prophet. Some people think you're this. Some people think you're that. And Jesus says, what do you think about me? You know, Peter makes that famous statement, well, I think you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says, Peter, you got it right. Now look up here, this is so big. And if you're not a Christian, you know, you kind of discounted the whole Bible because it's something somebody told you in college or whatever. I understand that. But let's look up here. In that moment, Jesus said something. In that moment, Jesus predicted you. In this next moment, Jesus predicts us. This is 2,000 years ago. There's 12 of them. They're basically outlaws and bandits. They are losing popularity. Eventually, he's gonna be arrested and crucified, and they're gonna run for the hills. There are no heroes in this group. One of them's gonna betray him. And the rest are gonna take off, and Peter's gonna say, I don't even know who you're talking about. Who? I don't know the guy. That's who's there. And Jesus stops on his way to Caesarea Philippi, and he looks at them. And he says, guys, let me tell you what's gonna happen. I will build my church. I will build a gathering. I will build a collection of people who will gather around this idea, Peter, that you just said, that I am the Christ, the Son of the living God. Listen to this. All over the world today, people are gathered in Jesus' name, and there's only one thing we have in common. Not the way we dress, not the language we speak, not the Bible we read, not our theology, not how we take an offering, not how we baptize, not how we do communion. There's almost nothing that everyone who calls himself a Christian has in common except for this very one thing that Jesus predicted 2,000 years ago. The thing that we have in common is that we gather around this one central idea that Jesus announced when he said, I will build my church and the gates of Hades will not stand against it. And the thing that will draw everyone together, Peter, is what you just said, that I am the Christ, the Son of the living God. I will build my church and the gates of hell will not overcome it. And they haven't. And they won't. And that's why outside of your local, outside of your family, outside of your marriage, your kids and your grandkids, there is no greater investment in the world than investing in the local church.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, man, appreciate that. I mean, what's better than that? What's more important than that? In first service, our student director, Ellie Zuber, was watching this, and she texted me, hey, I'm about to bribe you to tell everybody we're in need of a 7th grade and 8th grade men's small group leader back in our transit environments, you know, where kids' faith is sometimes hanging on by a thread. And I said to Ellie, you don't have to bribe me. I'm gonna go out and ask right now. Because all our areas for kids and students are so strong. There's so many adults, but we're missing a male small group leader for 7th grade boys and an 8th grade boys leader. And I'm just asking, if you're here, you're online, you're like, you know what? I could do that for somebody else. I could write a legacy. I could be part of somebody's story. And you feel that, what I'd love for you to do, if you're in the room, stop by the Next Steps desk out in the lobby and just say, I'm interested, tell me more. You at least get some information. If you're online and that appeals to you, just say, yeah, I'm interested, because we're doing something. And I'm convinced that this just might be the best fall we've ever had as a church, and we have had some amazing years around here. This might be our very best, so get ready, guys. We're going for it. Thanks for being here. Make sure you say hey to Ben and Amy out in the lobby. We love you all. Have a great rest of your day.